In a first major demonstration since Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's ouster in August of last year, her party Awami League has called for protest in February demanding Yunus-led government to resign. Now, then there is the picture of Dhaka State Guest House with members of a delegation from the Open Society Foundation led by its chair Alex Soros, son of George Soros, who calls himself an agent of change, and Muhammad Yunus, the interim head of the Bangladesh's regime that grabbed power through a coup last year. Now, this has once again brought to fore the suspicions that the collapse of Sheikh Hasina's government was not spontaneous people's revolution. Now, Soros's OSF has been accused of promoting regime change in Eastern Europe, the Middle East and Latin America. And many argue that it played a role in overthrowing of Sheikh Hasina's government last year. Now, Alex Soros Jr. said that he would help Bangladesh's efforts to rebuild the economy, trace siphoned off assets, combat misinformation and carry out vital economic reforms. Now let's see this against the backdrop of the newly elected president of the US, Donald Trump, freezing aid to the Yunus-led interim administration. Also, Trump is no friend of George Soros and he has tasked several of those appointed to his cabinet with dismantling the Soros ecosystem. US investor George Soros made headlines in India too when he funded organizations who were behind the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP, that accused the Adani Group of using opaque Mauritius-based funds to channel investments into its companies. So, how should one look at the emergence of an overt George Soros linked to the incumbent Dhaka regime, and what does this mean for India, and what should India be doing right now? Let's talk about all of that. Joining us is Ambassador Deepak Vora and Adit Kothari, geopolitical expert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out. I want to come to you first, Ambassador. How are you viewing Alex Soros's entry in administration of Dhaka in Bangladesh? He says he's out there to really help the Yunus government, but this also goes on to show that George Soros, his son, have links with the Dhaka government, and perhaps that revolution that we talked about that led to the ouster of Sheikh Hasina wasn't as spontaneous as it was meant to be or shown to be.
Well, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you on your show. I look forward to learning from you. You're outstanding, and I'm looking forward to hearing my colleague, who's also going to be talking to us. This character, Alex Soros, who has met Muhammad Useless Khan, not Useless Khan, whatever his name is, Yunus Khan. He's met him twice. He is, as you just said, the son of Khan's 95-year-old god, whose name is Georgi Schwartz. You call him George Soros. Family changed their name from the German Jewish Schwartz to Soros because they were used to cheating and lying from the very beginning. Now, this fellow Alex has become the chief advisor to the chief advisor. And days after Donald Trump said, get lost, no more money for Bangladesh, he's gone there. Ma'am, you've just mentioned how President Trump does not like Useless Khan at all. End October, not too long ago, strongly condemned, whatever the violence against Hindu, Christian, I don't remember. Then you just said that they discussed many things according to whatever they read out. Rubbish. If they are going to discuss vital economic reforms and misinformation and trace siphoned off assets, you are looking at 20 years, ma'am. I've been in diplomacy and counting for 53 years, 6 countries as ambassador. Money doesn't get traced overnight. So what Useless Khan is trying to do is saying, look, I'm going to get involved in all this. So for the next 25 years, nobody's going to touch me. How does it make a difference that I'm 85 now and I'll be whatever 110? That's the first thing. Second, ma'am, I don't think anything is going to work. The bottom line, as was Billu Bhai Clinton. You remember the American president? From jokingly, I mean, I know him well. Jokingly, I would always say, "Tusi te Punjab de ho," so we call you Billu Bhai Clinton. What was his economic punchline when he was contesting election? It's the economy, stupid. And if you can't improve the economy, nothing will happen. So all this thing, we'll trace this and we'll combat misinformation and we'll carry out reforms. Arrant, total nonsense. Nothing is going to happen till he gets money. And now, ma'am, the latest, as you rightly said, President Donald Trump, who says what he means, who means what he says. Now, give me another minute, I'll conclude. He has ordered that all of Shri George Soros' sin. George Soros was the guy, by the way, who broke the Bank of England when he shorted the pound, etc. He's quite a clown, this fellow. But economically, he's done very well for himself. So what is now going to happen, ma'am, what I see happening, that Trump is not going to lead George Soros. And Shri Mohammed Useless Khan will be collateral damage. You know what the Colombian president said? I'm not going to accept these flights carrying evictees, the illegal fellows who are coming there. 5 minutes later, he changed his mind when Trump said, I've just signed the sanctions against you. Then the Guatemalan vice president showed up at the airport with open arms to receive all the chaps America had thrown out. You can't fight the United States, ma'am. Love it or like it, its economic strength is unrivaled. And I believe that Useless Khan is on his way out, Soros or no Soros.
All right. Thank you for setting the ball rolling, Ambassador Vora. Adit, I think these developments are as interesting for the US as they are for India. Let's talk about the India implication first. Now, we do know that Mohammed Yunus has not been very useful, at least for India. If I were to draw a line there from what Ambassador Vora has been saying, a bit of useless there, at least for India so far. But, you know, given that he is close to George Soros and there have been financial links established earlier as well, what does it really mean for India, for Alex Soros to be visiting the interim head of state in our next door neighbor, knocking on their doors, being welcomed, with arms open? What does it really mean for India?
So I think first we need to establish the relationship between George Soros or the Open Society Foundation and Mohammed Yunus. You know, they go back right up to 1999 when I think it was Open Society Foundation which put in $11 million in Grameen Bank, which then acquired the Grameen phone, the Grameen Telecom in Bangladesh, making it the biggest player in the telecom industry. So that's that's the history between Mohammed Yunus and the Open Society Foundation. Mr. Jaishankar has rightly sort of described Soros as this old, rich, and extremely dangerous man because he has this habit of influencing politics in various regions. I live in England. We've been impacted by the Soros Foundation when he shorted the pound, as pointed out by Ambassador Vora. Also, his son Alexander Soros, he has acclaimed himself to be far more political than his father was. So we know that these nefarious and feral characters have an agenda to play globally, and they want to manage politics. They want to implement their agenda globally. As a consequence, he's also acquired 200 radio stations very recently, which the Biden administration expedited to ensure that it went through all of the approvals without being questioned, so that he can influence 165 million listeners globally. So there is a ploy that the Soros Foundation essentially run with. And the direct contest is with Narendra Modi. That is no hidden secret that the Open Society Foundation, its minions sitting in India and abroad, have no love lost for Narendra Modi or the present dispensation in India. The point of contention is that there is going to be a lot of activities that we're going to see from Bangladesh, which is going to be not in India's interest in the next couple of years. But the good part is that Mohammed Yunus himself has not been able to establish much of a control on the economy. If you look at the GDP is already dropping. The inflation is skyrocketing from 9%. It's gone up to about 10.5%, forecasted to grow to about 11.5%. So when that happens, there is going to be a lot of disgruntlement within the population. There could be a civic uprising, which India may need to consider to ensure that the porous border between India and Bangladesh comes into play. So all in all, from an India perspective, you need to strengthen the borders. You need to ensure that the non-lethal treaty, which is signed between India and Bangladesh, where any infiltrators, any illegal aliens coming into India, we will not be able to use lethal weapons. That needs to be torn and thrown into the dustbin. And you need to basically make economic life miserable for Bangladesh to ensure that there is no adverse activities from Bangladesh soil coming into India.
All right. It's not going to be an easy road, Ambassador, for Bangladesh anyway, given that Donald Trump has walked the talk. He has taken back funding to Bangladesh. What does it really mean for its economic recovery? We know Bangladesh's economy has been on a downturn, since last year. But now that US funding is gone, what does it mean for Bangladesh and its recovery?
It's on suicide row. And this buffoon over there is accelerating it. Ma'am, let me tell you two things. when McDonald Trump, as I lovingly call him, sent back these characters to Guatemala. And then he posted a picture of himself wearing a sombrero, standing in front of a sign which said FAFO. And people were saying, what can you do to us? And FAFO is American slang for F around and find out. So I'll tell you what I can do for you. It's very common in the United. They're amazing people. Now, the thing which comes to my mind is that if I were the chief advisor to the chief advisor, I would tell him that many years ago somebody had said, sitting on the back of a horse, it's very easy to conquer a country. The challenge is to dismount and start governing. Now he has realized it's not easy to govern at all. And who is he fighting with? With me? I'm right now in a BSF place in Jodhpur, and I'll be traveling also to the West Bengal border. All their people and my own friends have told me that this business about they can walk across when they feel like it's no longer true. We shoot them before asking questions. So I believe that we are doing very effective work. The fencing is going on, etc., etc. They will realize very quick. He has only one neighbor, ma'am. There's even been reports about what we are going to do to all these fellows. So I would take it and I would tell the millions of people through you who are watching your show, don't panic. You know, we are the children of Chanakya. We know how to behave. And Chanakya's immortal advice to us, Sam, Dam, Bhed, and then Dand, which is punishment. He's heading for punishment, not just for me. He went to China. China said, oh, Jamaat-e-Islami, wonderful guys, I love you, and we'll give you whatever you want. You know how much they've given them so far? $50. And even that they have said, give me back $1. Okay. They don't have the money to give. Why would they? It's an Islamic country, ma'am. Please understand. It's not the Uyghur land. It's Rohingya land or whatever you might call it. The Chinese just don't like them. They were doing it to provoke India. We refuse to get provoked. But I don't think this guy has a hope in hell. He doesn't even have a straw to clutch at as he's drowning.
All right. Adit, before I let the two of you go, I think, it does appear like Mohammed Yunus is actually becoming a part of a self-inflicted death. It's harakiri for him going forward. But given that Awami League too is now saying that we are going to protest the Yunus-led government, we are going to organize a protest, ask for them to step down from February onward. Given that in context of what's happening in the US, where Donald Trump has cut back on funding, and Alex Soros suggesting that we are here for you, how do you put this in context? Where does this leave the current ruling dispensation in Bangladesh?
So as far as I see, I think Yunus is going to go by May or April. And the army is going to kick in because of the civil unrest that is going to take place. They are calling for elections in November, but I don't see that happening immediately because it's not in favor of Jamaat to have those elections. Because if elections were to held, Jamaat doesn't have that kind of electoral bandwidth to be able to capture the imaginations of the electoral voters. Awami League minus Jamaat, it's only benefit BNP. So that is something which the Jamaat is not going to allow to happen. So ultimately, there is going to be semblance. India, you cannot ignore geography. The fact of the matter is, no matter whichever country wants to come and put its stake in Bangladesh, ultimately it's India. India needs to be able to. They will need India's assistance at some point or the other to ensure that civility, that civil disobedience and any sort of issues in Bangladesh can be controlled. And that is where I think India will come in. November elections will happen, but ultimately we have to see whether Awami League becomes a stakeholder in that elections or not.
All right, gentlemen, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Ambassador Adit, for joining us and for taking time out.